Hello. So despite the deceptive thumbnail, I am actually still reading The Day It Rained Forever by Ray Bradbury in this beautiful penguin edition that I talked about in the first video. Now the reason I'm using a different thumbnail is because last time I did a number of videos about the same short story collection. I had a couple of viewers say that they didn't click on the second one because they thought they were looking at the one they'd already viewed. Also, the last time I went back and tried to figure out which stories were in which collection, I had no idea because I used the same thumbnail. Whatever. So this is the second video for a few short stories from the Ray Bradbury collection. We're going to start with number 7. It's called Referent. And this is a really interesting story, and the main theme of it is, what if an alien came to investigate Earth, but the alien is sufficiently evolved that they've got control of their own molecules, so they can actually change shape as they will it. What happens if they come into contact with someone who has a really strong frame of reference, i.e. referent, and forces them to assume a shape that they don't want? It's set in a futuristic universe where the intelligent children are put in some sort of weird institution that bounces them all around the world from lesson to lesson, and it likely references a whole heap of very science fiction-y motifs and future society, very controlled, rigorously controlled society. And there's this one boy within it who isn't happy there. He's been forcibly removed from his mother. So in his designated meditation time, he's in a garden. A spaceship descends. He sees something that is outside his frame of reference, and what the human brain tries to do is tries to shape it into something it recognizes. So the boy tries to recognize this thing, and this alien is forced into that shape. It's a good little story, and it's fascinating. It's got a great concept. I do recommend it, and I'm not going to tell you the ending of it. I'm pretty sure I've read that one before, but it was a long time ago, and while I had a notion of what was happening, I wasn't sure. Really good. Story number 8 is The Marriage Mender. And what The Marriage Mender is an interesting biopic of people. It's not really science fiction. It's not even really weird fiction. It's about a couple, I'm going to say probably a young couple, who are married, and they're sleeping in their bed, or they go to bed, and the bed is actually the main character and main motif of this story. So if you read back over early, I'm going to say 30s, 40s type stories from around the Mediterranean, when a couple married, a lot of the furniture came from the family. This I imagine as being a family bed. It's got all these curlicues, I don't know. There seems to be a harp attached to it as well. And the young wife isn't happy with it, and she wants a really brand new bed that came out of the store like her neighbor has. Yeah, there's really nothing weird about it, but it is very prettily written. It's an interesting story. It carries you into the people and into their lives, and the ending is kind of cute and cool. It's far more mainstream story, I suppose, than a lot of what Bradbury writes. I wouldn't be surprised if it was written specifically for more mainstream publication, but I don't know, because really there's not a lot of introduction on the individual stories here. In fact, there is no introduction on the featured stories here. Story number 9 is The Town Where No One Got Off. So it starts off feeling like a bit of a pastoral story. You've got a couple of businessmen on a train crossing the middle of America, and one of them staring out the window at all these nowhere towns where the train never stops, no one gets on, no one gets off. And he's saying to the other one, how interesting would it be to take a whole vacation in one of these nowhere towns where no one knows you and you've got nothing? And the other one goes, nah, you'd be bored instantly. And on a complete whim, this guy asks to be let off. He's let off in a town no one gets off at, in the middle of nowhere, with nothing to it. And he's wandering around the town, and it starts off as, it goes from feeling pastoral to begin with to being a little bit sinister and a little bit weird and a little bit thrillerish. And then it went completely serial killer on you without actually any killing involved, but all the threat. I finished this one. This one had me breathless in the last few pages. I just couldn't look up from it to see what was happening. Is it all an illusion that Bradbury is casting over you, that what you're reading, is it true, is it not true? And how it ended was great. I actually went back to the start of that one as soon as I'd finished reading it and reread it. It was that good, in that very understated way that Bradbury does so well. Story number 10 in this collection is Icarus, Montgolfier, Wright, and this, I would say, is essentially Bradbury's love story to all the stories of and people who ever wanted to fly. And the theme of it is that there's a young man sleeping. He's in the desert in, I'm going to say New Mexico. I could be wrong. I think so. He's sleeping before he is about to get on a rocket ship. And in his dreams, he covers all these people who've flown before. Icarus, Montgolfier, the Wright brothers. And ironically, I read this story the day before my first ever skydive. So that worked. That worked. And it's a good story. It's a little bit of a pan to a whole heap of different traditions. So Icarus, of course, is a very famous story. And I think if you've read widely and if you know a bit about the Wright brothers and you know about all these backgrounds, I think this story will really intrigue you. I enjoyed it. Story number 10 is Almost the End of the World. This one is weird with a twist that I especially liked. So you've got two miners, as in digging for, might be gold. I think it's gold, out in the desert. And every now and then they come into town to get a haircut, reacquaint themselves with humanity, whatever. Anyway, they drive into town and the older one's looking around, goes, there's something really weird. This is wrong. Don't know what's wrong. Everything's really clean, really tidy, really painted. Everything's been painted. The houses have been painted. The fences have been painted. The bird bath has been painted. And it's really creepy, and they go into the barber's, and the barber sort of shushes them down when they're asking them. They sit down. There is something weird has happened. So this is an eerie, weird tales type story. And I really loved it because, and this is a bit of a spoiler. This is the spoiler symbol. Well, the hand is up. I'm spoilering. So what's happened is all the television and the radio vanished, and all the people have got nothing to do, so they started painting everything. But essentially, for me, being a non-television based life form, the idea of the television just vanishing everywhere in the world was fantastic, and I thought it was really, however unlikely, intriguing and entertaining. I enjoyed that one. It was almost the end of the world, but it wasn't. Was it the beginning of a new world? I would argue so. 12. Dark They Were and Golden-Eyed. This is one of Ray Bradbury's Martian stories. I think it might well be the first of his Martian stories, Martian Chronicles, that I ever read. And I don't know where I read it. I absolutely adore this story. And I think that a lot of the Martian Chronicles can be quite dark. They can be very depressing at times. I don't always love them. I always am intrigued by them and I'm always engrossed by them. But this one has got this truly mind-bending, horizon-opening concept. And the writing in it is a lot less dark than, say, The Little Blue Bottle. Is that what its name? The Blue Bottle story. The Martian Blue Bottle story that never appears in the Martian Chronicles. And less sad and everything ending in a lot of the Martian Chronicles. But this one, I'm going to spoiler abjectly, if you can spoiler a story that's been around for this long. So this is a future when a whole heap of rockets from America have deposited a few hundred, maybe a couple of thousand people on Mars. And it mentions briefly colonialism, and there's this very colonial attitude. So all these people from Earth have gone to Mars to settle, and there's rockets that come and go every now and then. The protagonists are a family, mother, father, daughter, 2 sons, and it opens with them first landing on Mars, getting out of the rocket and looking around, and Mr. Betterdon, I think his name is instantly discomforted by the fact that you can't hear anything. It doesn't sound right, it doesn't feel right, it is dry. And what he wants to do is he wants to get right back on the rocket and go straight home to Earth. Bittering, that's it. Harry Bittering and his wife Cora, Tim, Laura and David. But his wife won't have it. They walk on and they build a little white cottage and they plant all these plants they brought from Earth. There's a peach tree from, I'm going to say Minnesota, somewhere in America. And you've got onions and carrots and all these Earth things. And then Harry starts to get really, really creeped out by the fact that people are changing. He first sees it in gold flecks in people's eyes, and people are being burnt dark by the hot Martian suns. And all of a sudden, strange things like words from old Martians start creeping into their language. And bear in mind, the Martians aren't there. They never meet any actual Martians. There's just their ruined cities, their amazing structures, the canals, all those things that we know aren't really in Mars, but they are. In some dimension, there is a Mars with amazing villas with ever-running water and mosaics. I'm convinced. I wish I was convinced. It's a great story. Anyway, then they learn that Earth, which has been on the verge of nuclear warfare for quite some time, has tipped over the limit. There will be no more rockets bringing newspapers up for them to read over their breakfast. And the people keep changing. And Harry gets really creeped out by this. So he decides he's going to build his own rocket so that he can get back to Earth and escape from these changes. And then one day he realizes that his wife Cora has got golden eyes. And he says to her, have your eyes been changing from brown to gold? And she goes, no, I don't think so. I think they've always been this way. And he goes, no, they weren't. All of them are changing. They are changing into the people that Mars wants to have. So they are changing into Martians. And there's one episode where the eldest of the 2 sons comes to them and says, look, I don't want to use my name anymore. I'd like to be called this other name, and it's a Martian name. And then one day in summer, all the other guys in the town who have been laughing at Harry building this rocket come to him and they say, hey, it's really hot. You should give up on the rocket until autumn when it'll be cooler. And you should come with us. We've found ourselves these beautiful villas in the foothills. We're just going to move up there for the summer. And his wife Cora thinks it's a good idea too. And finally chirp. Hello Reapy Cheap. Hello YouTube. And finally Harry agrees to move up to this cool villa with the running water over summer and come back to the rocket in autumn. Only it never really happens, and none of them ever go back to the town, and the Earth-style town is deserted. And the ending is when, after the war's finished, a new rocket comes from Earth, and there are no humans, and they think that we're never going to find out what happened to them. Fantastic story. I know I've now spoiled it, but I know that lots of people out there have read Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles, and you probably know the story already. I love this story. I would like to read the whole lot of them again and see if this is still my favourite story, but for now I'm going to say it rains. After that we've got number 13, The Smile. This is a short story and this is creepy, weird and dystopian. So in a dystopian future, a whole heap of people, men and boys, our protagonist is a boy called Tom, are lining up to spit at something. Which I'm going to say, I'd say that's very American 50s. I don't think that most Westerners spit at things. There are certain Asian countries where I know that that's a thing. Anyhow, they're lining up to spit at something. And the previous month, maybe, there'd been a festival where they wrecked things, like an automobile or a factory that was trying to manufacture things. And the story that emerges from someone in the line is that these are all symbols of the old Earth that they hated, that did them a lot of damage, and now they just want to wreck anything that comes from there. They don't want civilization to come back again. They want civilization to stay gone. And as a symptom of this dislike, one might say PTSD in the 2020s, whatever, they just wreck everything that they can. The reason that they give for this is that they associate civilization entirely with war. As soon as civilization arises again, one person in line says, we're just going to have wars again. Another one says, well, maybe we could have some civilization, just keep the good bits and not worry about the bad bits. Anyway, when they finally get to the front of the line, as the story suggests, as the title suggests, the smile. They're lining up to wreck a painting. And I think it's probably because I partially remembered this story, though I don't remember from when, I recognized what the smile would have to be. So this is a whole book about the Mona Lisa as pop culture. The history of the world's most famous painting. And in this book, it explores how Mona Lisa has become one of the most immediately recognized images worldwide for people who, many of whom aren't interested in art, have never actually been to the Louvre, who don't really know much about it, but their instantly recognizable smile. So this is where Bradbury uses that instantly recognizable smile as an object of derision. Anyway, the painting ends up being ripped apart, and the boy, Tom, is in there at the ripping, and he grabs a handful of fabric, and later he opens his hand to find this smile in it. It's a short story, and it's not that extensive, but again, you've got Bradbury doing that thing that he does so well. With just a few lines, a few pages, he creates so much more experience than other people can create in a whole book. So I really like that. I liked his slow building of dystopia. I loved the way he used the Mona Lisa as an imagery. Did see it coming. I think anyone who knows much about art will. Doesn't matter either way, really. Story number 14 is Here There Be Tygers. Great story. I'm still uncertain as to whether I have actually read it before or not. I feel like not that long ago, a similar theme came up in another story or possibly a book that I read. So here we've got a rocket ship exploring a new world, and we learn that there's so many worlds and so many rocket ships, and we start off with Chatterton, I think his name is, who's funded the expedition, talking about all he wants to do to a world is strip of its resources, rape it dry, as it were, take everything it's got and move on to the next one. You can't trust planets, he says. I think this is all pretty heavy metaphor. I did enjoy it. Anyway, the captain is just doing what the expedition says and what his orders say. They land, and it's this beautiful bucolic land. Smooth grasses, pretty forests, the air tastes of wine. It reminds everyone of their boyhood and long, lazy, happy days in summer. And rather than getting out the drill straight away and drilling straight down, the captain insists that they do a parameter. They just find more and more beauty and more happiness. And then they find out that their dearest wishes can come true. So the captain is essentially suspecting that this world is just giving them whatever they want. It's a world that wants to keep them, wants to make them happy. There's lots of metaphors for women who are charming and do things to keep people, whatever. Genderism aside, okay? Of course, all the men in the rocket are men because, you know, early science fiction. Anyhow, all the crew are really enjoying this world. They're loving lying around. When they find a stream, it's clear, it's safe to drink, and it tastes of a rare white wine. Sounds great. The only person who isn't liking this is the miner, the explorer who likes taking all the mineral resources of the planet. Chatterton, he's getting more and more uneasy. He doesn't want to eat anything. He doesn't want to breathe anything. He doesn't want to relax. And finally, he rushes back to the ship, grabs out a drill, and starts trying to drill down into this world, which resists. Here there be tigers. It will give you what you imagine. And everyone else is loving the world and going with it. And it's a whole love fest between the world and them. This one guy is fighting against it. And he gets his own attitude right back at him. Great story. I'm pretty sure I've seen another story recently, and I don't know who wrote it, about a beautiful world that gives you whatever you want, however unlikely. I think it's something I read last year. It could even be another Bradbury, but I'm not sure. I wish I could remember that short story. If anyone else remembers this short story, please let me know. I remember there were beautiful but impossible animals, and yeah, a planet making you welcome. And they left. What's wrong with them? Anyway, so that's story number 14 in The Day It Rained Forever, which is getting more and more battered as I carry it around in my bag into the beach and everything. There are 23 short stories in the collection. My next one is called The Headpiece. And then I've got 8 more to go after that. It might take me a while, but I am enjoying them. I'm trying not to read more than one story a day because each one of these stories deserves attention and it needs rumination. You can spend a lot of time thinking it over after you've read it or even rereading it. So, Ray Bradbury, The Day It Rained Forever. Thank you guys for voting for this book. It's got the goods. Read good books.